Some of the biggest names in WWE history began their careers with a lackluster gimmick, which failed to get them over. However, once this gimmick was scrapped and a fresh and often unique gimmick was presented to the fans, they would become superstars. Well, which wrestlers were they? Well, join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 WWE gimmick changes that saved a wrestler's career. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Also check us out on TikTok. Number 10. Husky Harris to Bray Wyatt. When Husky Harris debuted on the second season of NXT in 2010, he had no clear identity. Fans had no idea what to make of Harris, as it was unclear what his gimmick was. However, when Harris arrived back to the WWE developmental following a brief run on the main roster, he created a persona which would save his entire wrestling career. He would transform into Bray Wyatt, a cultist leader who spoke in riddles and was often compared to Max Caddy in Cape Fear, not to mention the successor to Waylon Mercy, which the character was based on. The gimmick was a huge success and eventually led to Bray forming the Wyatt family alongside Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. When Bray joined the main roster in 2013, he would become a top star in the company, eventually winning the WWE title and Universal title. In 2019, Bray once again adapted the gimmick by ditching the cult leader element and having two separate gimmicks, one known as Firefly Funhouse Bray, a lovable host of a children's TV show, and The Fiend, a demonic version of Bray who was more sinister than ever before. Number 9. Fake Diesel to Kane. Before Kane made his debut on television in 1997, he had a total of two infamous gimmicks in WWE. One was an evil dentist known as Isaac Yankem, and the other was a fake version of Diesel. Both of these were career killers for Kane, and they were never going to lead him to receiving a major push in the company. Thankfully, in 1997, WWE decided they wanted to debut the brother of The Undertaker on WWE programming, and there was no better choice than Glenn Jacobs himself. Jacobs was the perfect choice, as he was able to modify the gimmick over the next 20 years and survive through multiple errors to create one of the most beloved and well-remembered characters in WWE history. Number 8. Hunter Hearst Helmsley to Triple H. Although the Hunter Hearst Helmsley gimmick was slightly over, it definitely had a ceiling and would have never led to anything more than a mid-card run for the future WWE champion. In 1997, Triple H began to align himself with Shawn Michaels, and the two alongside Chyna would form the legendary DX stable. As part of this stable, Triple H began to drop his previous gimmick, as gone would be the foreign accent, gone would be the classy, often regal attire, and in its place would be a character full of attitude, wit, and tenacity. The gimmick change would turn Triple H into one of the biggest names in pro wrestling history. He would win the world title a total of 14 times during his career, making him one of the most decorated talents to ever step foot in the squared circle. Number 7. The World's Strongest Man to the Hall of Pain. Mark Henry, for the first half of his WWE career, had a difficult time in the company. Although he was given a number of gimmicks, including sexual chocolate and a gimmick which solely revolved around his strength, none of these pushed him into main event status. Then in 2011, due to SmackDown being weak on the number of heels on the roster, WWE decided to turn Henry heel and give him a brand new character. This Henry would be bitter and angry, and he would open up his very own Hall of Pain. This saw Henry lay out everyone from The Big Show to Kane. Henry truly found his calling with this gimmick, as his in-ring work and promo had never been better, and eventually led to Henry capturing the world title in September 2011 when he defeated Randy Orton. Number 6. Brideshaw to JBL. The WWE had experimented with Bradshaw as a solo guy before 2004, but it never really worked, as fans always preferred seeing him team up with Farouk as part of the APA. Nevertheless, in 2004, WWE made concrete plans to make Bradshaw the top heel on SmackDown. They broke up the APA and gave Bradshaw a brand new gimmick. He would become John Bradshaw Layfield. He was an arrogant Texan millionaire who was a stock trading expert. The gimmick worked wonders for JBL, as fans took him seriously due to the character being so convincing, especially during his feud with Eddie Guerrero. In the summer of 2004, they decided to pull the trigger and actually gave JBL the WWE title, and his reign would last for 280 days. Number 5. 3MB to the Scottish Psychopath. Drew McIntyre was once a name that WWE fans expected to be a huge star, but when they decided to put him in the 3MB stable alongside Jinder Mahal and Heath Slater, his career was virtually dead. The act was a complete novelty act and was never taken seriously by fans, which likely explains why Drew was released back in 2014. Drew then went on to tear on the independent scene as well as Impact Wrestling, making him one of the most sought after talents in the world. This naturally piqued WWE's interest and they decided to bring him back in 2017. Thankfully, the 3MB gimmick would be dropped upon Drew's return and he would debut a new persona known as the Scottish Psychopath. The character was credible and legitimate. Drew became a serious player in the main event scene and eventually won the title by defeating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 36. Number 4. Deacon Batista to the Animal. Deacon Batista made his first appearance on television in 2002. He would act as Reverend Devon's henchman and was presented as a generic character that clearly wasn't going to be on television for the long term. In late 2002, Deacon Batista was handpicked to be in the Evolution stable alongside Randy Orton, Ric Flair, and Triple H. This would save Batista's career as he would become one of the most popular stars of the Ruthless Aggression era. The Deacon element of his name would be dropped and Batista would turn into the Animal. Batista would then go on to win the world title on 6 separate occasions throughout his legendary career. Number 3. The Ringmaster to Stone Cold Steve Austin. In 1995, WWE fans were introduced to the Ringmaster, who was managed by Ted DiBiase and would carry the $1 Million Championship. Now, the issue with this gimmick was that it failed to express any of Austin's true charisma and personality, and he needed a change. Eventually, the name and gimmick of Stone Cold Steve Austin was born, and Austin would shave his head as well as grow a goatee. Austin would then go on to win the King of the Ring in 1996, which saw him deliver the infamous Austin 316 promo. Following the promo, Austin became the biggest name on the roster, and it wasn't before long that the entire WWE and the wrestling world revolved around Stone Cold Steve Austin. Number 2. Rocky Maivia to The Rock. Now, The Rock's initial character known as Rocky Maivia debuted in 1996 and it was universally hated by fans. It was hated so much that fans actually chanted "Die Rocky Die" at the young star. The fans wanted more than the bland babyface on the WWE roster, and if The Rock remained as Rocky Maivia, it's unlikely he would have become the major player he is today. 1 year after his debut, The Rock would turn heel, siding with the Nation of Domination. He would then ditch the Rocky Maivia persona and name, and he would begin to deliver some of the most entertaining segments of all time thanks to his natural charisma and ability to play off the crowd. And number 1, generic babyface to the Dr. Thugonomics. It was rumored in 2002 that John Cena's main roster run was going so poorly that WWE were going to release the future champion. Cena had no direction and he had no investable character. His gimmick consisted of him being a generic babyface, and this wasn't going to lead to any success for Cena. But this is when Cena began to introduce raps into his character, and the crowd as well as Vince McMahon absolutely loving it. Cena went from being on Velocity to working major programs on television with Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar. Cena would turn into the Doctor of Thugonomics and he would begin to perform a rap in relation to whoever his opponent was. It was truly special and Cena became a massive attraction for WWE. Eventually they decided that Cena was going to be their new top guy in the company. This was a risk that paid off as Cena would go on to carry the entire company for the next decade. But there you have it folks, 10 WWE gimmick changes that saved a wrestler's career. Be sure to leave your comments down below and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.